Hello. Welcome to Mindfulness. Welcome back if you've been before. Welcome for the first time if you haven't. We're glad to have all of you, whether or not you've been before. I'm Miss Shepherd. I'm with my friend, Mr. Keogh. He'll introduce himself in a moment as well. We're very glad to be here. We make these recordings every few weeks, every couple of weeks. Today is August the 7th of 2020. I'm not sure when you'll see this, but that's when we're recording it. So we're just glad to be here. Mr. Keogh.
And I'm Mr. Keogh, and just wanted to say hello before we get into it. Both Ms. Shepherd and I have been coming into Wisconsin prisons for several years now, and it's just too bad that we can't come in and see you guys in person. But at least this is a one-way communication. So you'll hear more from us both in a minute.
Thank you. And speaking on the one-wayness of it, we want to remind you, as we've done other weeks, that if you do have a comment or a question or something you particularly like us to address or talk about, please do send that request to your chaplain or your psychologist, whoever it is that's running these sessions for your institution, and they can get that to us so that in our next recording, we can address it, talk about it. So that would give us a little bit of a way to be in communication with you, which we would be very happy to do. So we'll run today in a fashion similar to we have done in previous videos. So we'll begin with a guided meditation. I'll put an image on the screen, so if you prefer not to close your eyes, you can use the image as something to settle the mind on. So we'll do the short guided meditation, then we'll have a conversation, a discussion. And today we're planning to talk about becoming aware of, noticing, listening to your own thoughts, being aware of what's happening in your own mind. And after that discussion that Mr. Keogh is going to talk about it, we're going to talk together, and then we'll end with another guided meditation. So with that, we'll begin the meditation, and the meditation will begin and end with the sound of the bell 3 times. So just taking a moment to come into this very moment. Letting go of anything from the morning, or I don't know what time you're listening to this. Excuse me. Letting go of sounds, letting go of anything that's happened beforehand, anything that might be happening later. Considering what it would mean to just be here, right now. Here in the sense of this body, this mind, this environment, whether it's noisy or quiet, cold or hot, whatever it may be. Letting the body and mind settle into this. And particularly, we're interested in what is actually directly experienced. And that very much is the body and the breath. So becoming aware of what is occurring, what is felt right now in your very own body. Maybe it's a sensation of sitting on the chair or the floor or wherever you are. The sensation of that weight. Maybe it's the sensation of your hands touching each other, touching your thighs. Maybe just a sense of warmth in them. Noticing your shoulders and your neck, your head. Just realizing that there is really a great deal occurring in this very body, in this very moment. As we begin to turn more internally, as we're less caught up in leaning into the next moment, leaning into things outside of ourselves, as we come into our own experience, our own felt experience, it's often the case we begin to also realize that there is breath happening. And so use this opportunity to connect with each in-breath and each exhalation. Not controlling the in-breath and the out-breath, but really connecting to it as best you can. One strategy that's quite helpful for many people is to connect a word or a couple of words to the experience of breathing in and breathing out. So in the mind, you might just whisper, breathing in on the in-breath, breathing out on the out-breath. Or you might give some other words that help you. Just now, or peace, calm. Ease, comfort, whatever words help you. But the words just help us keep present with the actual experience of noticing that the breath is now coming in, now flowing out. And having those words to repeat with each experience of the breath coming in and each experience of the breath going out can sometimes help settle the mind a little bit. It gives it something to connect with so that it's slightly less likely to start spinning out thoughts and stories that get us lost, get us disconnected from this very moment. Our intention is to stay connected to right now. Noticing how right now is constantly changing. Noticing how even the breath is changing. How the body is changing. Becoming more familiar with the subtleties of breathing in and breathing out. Noticing perhaps how the length of the in-breath might be changing. The length of the out-breath might be changing. Maybe as you become more settled, noticing how is the breath changing Is it exactly the way it was when you first paid attention? Is it shallower or deeper? Longer or shorter? Smoother or rougher? Sustaining our interest and curiosity about this amazing experience of breathing. Noticing how the body breathes all on its own. Sometimes it feels like we need to breathe for the body, but in fact, that's not true. Considering what would it mean to get out of the way and just let the body breathe itself. How might that feel? Resting with the rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. If it's helpful, you can develop an image. Maybe an image of waves on the ocean. Breathing in is the wave rising, breathing out is the wave falling. Or the wings of a bird. Breathing in, the wings rise. Breathing out, the wings come down. There's a visual image that helps you connect. A word, or just a feeling. Whatever works for you to stay present with each breath. And staying present in a gentle, open, kind way. Not tightening into your attention, but opening, softening into attention.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. That was very nice. I invite the viewers to just take a couple seconds and notice how you feel right now. And if you can remember, kind of compare it with how you felt when you first tuned in. This is a very nice, most of the time, it's a very nice experience. And remembering how we feel now will add a little bit of motivation and encouragement for us to do this on our own. Because this is something, this peacefulness is something that's within us. We can touch it. It doesn't require a lot. It just requires kind of paying attention to ourselves and let those outside influences that can be upsetting, let them just kind of be put on hold for a little bit, for a few minutes. Anyway, like Ms. Shepherd said, our theme today is going to be kind of noticing our thoughts. So I imagine that there are some guys who are watching this video tuning in maybe for the first time without a lot of practice meditating, maybe curious, maybe not even very curious, just kind of watching. We encourage you to try this out on your own, because the more you do it, number one, you learn that it's pretty enjoyable, it's healthy. There's nothing very, very highly artful about this. It's something that anyone can do, and it's very valuable. Not only can we become more peaceful, but we can learn more about ourselves. And when we've been practicing meditation for a while, we might notice that it's easier for us to calm our thoughts. It's easier for us to have a mind that's not quite so jumpy, or at least it becomes less jumpy a little quicker as we start meditating in a meditation session. And when the mind is a little bit more settled, watching the breath or noticing the breath, noticing the way the body feels is always the basic situation to be in. Noticing my physical body, noticing my breath. If my breathing is free and easy, noticing my breath. If I can't breathe very well, then just noticing my body. But when the mind is more settled, there are always thoughts that come in. We're always getting distracted. And not only because there are noises outside in the room, but we're distracted by our own thoughts. And that can be aggravating, but the idea is not to be aggravated by the thoughts, but just kind of go on, notice the thought, come back to the breathing. But paying a little attention to those thoughts, sometimes we can do two things at once. We can kind of have a corner of our mind on our breathing and we're settled, we're calm, but also we notice what that thought was. Someone who's had more experience meditating, and I'll put this out as a challenge for people that have been meditating for a while. Do pay attention to your thought, not to be carried away with it, not to be following the story that your thought is all about, but just noticing that it's a thought that comes up, and you might learn something from this. So in my case, sometimes something will happen to me. Something might be very obvious. Somebody bugged me that morning, and it's just on my mind. And when I'm meditating, I come back to that. I rehearse that again and again, and I don't want to, but I do anyway. The mind is not under control totally. So that's very obvious what's going on. I'm kind of obsessing a little bit with what happened. My mind goes back again. It's not hard for me to know what my thought is. And I try not to be carried away with it, but I recognize that it's there. But there can be things that are not so obvious. Like in my own case, yesterday I had the chance to go golfing, and so I did, and it was not a particularly good time. It's a good thing that it was a beautiful scene, because the golf itself ruined it for me, almost ruined. No, but anyway, it's only a game. It's fine. And I didn't think much of it. But then last night, I woke up in the middle of the night, had to go to the bathroom, come back, and I'm laying there in bed. And my mind keeps going back again and again to these poor shots that I made, where I lost the ball deep in the woods. It's like, whoa, I'm noticing my thought. Okay, nothing great about it. But it's telling me, my thought is telling me that game was more important to me than I thought it was. That I was highly influenced by something that I thought was just a good time in the afternoon. It's like I let it get under my skin, and it comes out. It comes out in my thoughts. My thoughts come back to it. So it's not a great insight. It's not going to lead to more wisdom on my part very much. But I'm using that as an example of how noticing what your thoughts are can tell you something not only about the thought, but about yourself. And that's one of the big values of meditation practice, is that we learn more about ourselves in little ways and in big ways. So this is kind of it's about meditating, when you're meditating, if your mind is settled enough that you can do two things at once, you can pay attention to your breath and also just kind of recognize what that thought is. Sometimes the thoughts are totally random, and it's almost humorous, and that'll happen to me. It's like my mind will not settle down, but there's nothing that's going to grab on into in particular. It's going to go here, it's going to go there, it's going to go somewhere else. It's like this young puppy dog, that's just running all over. It's got to sniff everything, and it's humorous. So I don't want to. Sometimes I do, but I don't want to get upset with my mind being so scattered. But I can kind of be a little amused at how wild it is, about how out of control my mind can be sometimes. Again, I'm learning something about myself in noticing that. But I kind of wanted to get into practical things during life too. And I'm going to ask the question. So what do you think of, think for yourself, when I say, that guy is acting very childish, what does that bring, what kind of behavior, attitude does that bring to mind? Or even if a mother tells a teenager, stop acting so childishly, what does being childish bring to mind? Just think about this for a while. And I'll ask Ms. Shepherd, are you there? You're there next to me. What do you think of when I say so-and-so is acting very childish this morning?
Well, it makes me think of remembering when I had a young child. And I think the immediate responses that come are intense. Has to happen, whatever it is, has to happen now. So an incredible intensity, a demandingness. It has to be the way I want it to be. A self-centeredness, that it's all about me and my wants. A narrowness of perspective, the world that is there, that a child is aware of, is very much, 2 feet in front of them and either side, and that's it. Anything else is outside of the picture. A fragileness, a delicacy, that not much ability to handle difficulties. So that, as the person interacting, that means you have to be more careful, that people can be more easily hurt, I guess, when I think of children, that they don't have the resilience of people with more maturity.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
That's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of the child running away and slamming the door.
Yeah.
And pouting. and so what you said, yeah, that was, I was thinking about same things, and I was using my words that I was using are, it's all about me. It's what I want right now. Can't wait. Want it right now. And I don't know if you touched on it, but also not thinking too much about the consequences, not thinking down the road.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short term. It's
Very
like
true.
right now,
Right.
or I don't want it right now. Even if this, whatever it is, even if this shot is good for me, I don't want it.
Right.
Not thinking, but also the consequences of I might do something very impulsively, and it's going to get me into trouble later, but I'm not thinking down the road at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there might be some other aspects of it, but basically when we call somebody childish, it's not a very complimentary thing. It's not something that's very attractive for a grown-up. So then the opposite of childish is adult, being an adult. And I looked it up in the dictionary, and we have some words for being an adult. And it doesn't only mean being grown up. because I think that we all know that there are grown-ups who can act very child. In fact, I'll probably say that we all of us, me included, me number one, have my childish moments. Some of us more than others, but I think that that's something that we all, it's something that, depending on what the stresses are, we can all become very childish for a time. We can flip in and out. Maybe I can flip in and out of my childish mode very quickly, or maybe I'm in it for a long time. But anyway, other words for adult are wise, experienced, sensible, responsible. So these are, so being an adult is the opposite of being a child. And the reason that we got into this, did I say why I got into this? I don't remember. Anyway, is that these behaviors are always start with thoughts. And as we become better and we pay attention and we want to be watching our thoughts more, we become better at watching our thoughts. We notice that some thoughts are childish and others are more sensible, experienced, wise, responsible. Other thoughts are looking not me, but they're looking at the bigger picture. Or they're not thinking simply short term, but they're thinking of the consequences. This is not rocket science. I mean, we've all experienced this. We're all adults. We're all adults in this room. We're all adults that act like children sometimes. But the idea is to notice when our thought pattern is going in this childish direction, all about me, short term, not about consequences, wanting to pout, wanting to slam the door, those are thoughts that are associated with actions that, here's the thing, that first word that I use, another word for adult is experienced. With experience, we learn that those childish behaviors do not get us where we want to be, right? That's another thing, that the adult has learned, that if I want to get down there, I've got to go through some unpleasantness to get there. I've got to put up with not getting what I want right now in order for a bigger payoff down the road. Or it's not necessarily just about desiring things, it's also avoiding things. I might have to go through a little pain right now, so that I don't get measles, get my shot now so I don't get measles. An adult has learned that these automatic, natural, childlike responses, thoughts, are not something to transform into behaviors, but to notice that thought in an early stage. Oh, I'm being childish right now. Not necessarily saying that to yourself, but noticing it and substituting the more mature line of thought, which is reminding myself, oh, this is why I'm doing this. There's going to be a bigger picture down. There's going to be a bigger payoff down the road. I'm doing this in order to avoid something worse happening later. I'm doing this because I don't really have any control anyway, and it's not going to do me any good at all to slam a door. So those kind of my thoughts that we practice. We're doing our meditation every day as a practice in order to develop a better ability to put this practice into real life. And the real life part, the one that we're using as an example right now, the real life part is noticing our thoughts as we're walking around, as things happen to us. Not necessarily putting a name on, oh, I'm being childish like that now, but it's more automatic. It's like, oh, childish, it just happens automatic. Nope, that's not word. And moving so that those moments of childish automatic reaction, we catch them more quickly. We're aware of those thoughts as they happen. So
yeah. So it made me think of all sorts of things, and what I think most right now is that it's the non-childish response is recognizing the consequences of our actions, recognizing what really is for our benefit and other people's benefit. And so, of course, it makes me totally think of COVID and mask wearing and recognizing that, yeah, maybe, maybe I don't want to wear a mask. It's uncomfortable or it's unpleasant. But I recognize that if I don't wear a mask and other people aren't wearing a mask, the chances of people getting sick increase dramatically. And when people get sick, it's going to impact me negatively. That my actions can help be of benefit to me and be of benefit to other people. And the more I can be of benefit to other people, that actually is going to come back to me. Because if other people are having a hard time, it's going to come back to me. Living in a community where everybody's having a hard time, I'm not going to be able to not have a hard time too, because they're suffering. So recognizing our really their interconnection, and I think that's very much what mature responses, adult responses are. It's recognizing that, I can do everything in the world to try to help myself, but if it really only helps myself and it disadvantages other people, I'm going to feel the consequences of that, that I live with other people. Mm-hmm. And so it just seems very tied into what we're all experiencing right now, and recognizing that, it's what people say over and over and over. We are all in this together. There's no way to get out of it. You can't escape it. You can't pretend because you live in a rural area, it's not going to hit you, or because you're wealthy, it's not going to hit you, or because of anything. It's going to impact everybody. And I think to me, that's sort of the epitome of not being childish. That's the epitome of being mature, recognizing how we impact each other. And so recognizing when my thoughts might not be taking that into account, might be really very self-centered, and not really acknowledging, well, how might that other person be feeling, or how might my action right now impact other people. That I think that's one of the things that paying attention to our thoughts helps us begin to recognize. And that doesn't mean we don't take action, but it might mean that we alter the way we would take the action, recognizing how the consequences it may have for somebody else down the road.
Yeah, that's bringing out, I have been talking more or less like just noticing when I'm reacting in a childish way, the automatic reaction. But that's another important thing, is that we can use this. We can kind of be a little bit of introspection. What's introspection mean? It means kind of investigating, kind of noticing why I'm acting in the way that I'm acting. And we can kind of second guess. I've got certain thought patterns, and we can ask ourselves, is this thought pattern really in my long-term best interest, or is it short-term? And I got a little bit of desire not to make bad things happen, and they're blinding me to the fact that I've got to put up with some bad thing. Bad in the broad sense of something I don't want. I have to put up with something I don't want it, but really, am I being driven simply because I don't want it right now, or really in the long term, is it still something? I'm kind of deluding myself a little bit. I'm kind of not being honest with myself by having that line of thought.
Yeah, and sometimes is that not wanting it, is that just a sort of habitual response that we haven't really ever examined? I always think of when I was a little kid, for some reason, I never wanted to take a bath. I thought I didn't like it. And then I'd get in the bathtub and I'd love it. But I had this immediate, knee-jerk response, no, I don't want to take a bath. So I think as we learn mindfulness and we can recognize our thoughts, we can see that thought, no, I don't want to take a bath. And then you can stop and go, well, why? Maybe that's the original thought I had, or the original feeling I had, but is that worth hanging on to? Might it in fact be pleasurable, or in fact, might it at least get me cleaner and then I'll be more comfortable? So to just examine we have a lot of habitual responses to things that are completely unexamined. And when we look at them, they're actually not even what we really think or feel. They're just sort of habit.
That's the perfect lead in for
Oh,
me
good.
to talk about meditating, because I know very well, and I'm sure that everybody else who meditates knows this well. There'll be times when I think, oh, okay, I could be meditating now, and I don't want to. I don't want to. It's going to be boring. It's going to be boring. I don't want to sit here. There's something, whatever it is, and it might not even be anything really good that I'd be passing up, but it's just like, I just don't want to do it, so this is interesting too, because on the one hand, we can kind of use our thoughts, our judgment to say, this is going to be good for me. I'm going to think down the road. I will be, I will like this once I get into it. Or at least, oh, this is the kind of practice that's really good for me. I'm going to do it. But the other thing, and this is the valuable thing about a habit that I'm just going to have to bring up. Yeah, and they say that if you do things over and over again, they become habits. It becomes a little bit easier. It's not something that requires a lot of energy of willpower to do it again. It's just something, well, I always do this, so I'm going to do it. And that's true with meditation too. If a person can get into a daily habit, like if there's a time during the day when things are relatively quiet around you, and I've had a lot of guys in prisons say early in the morning, during a count, something like that, where things are relatively settled, that's when they meditate, even if it's not for a very long time, but it's something that they can do, and that they'll do, and they know they can do it every day. When you start doing that every day, my experience is it no longer requires very much energy for me to make myself sit down and meditate. That automatic short-term childish thing of, I don't want to right now, is really weak. It's not very strong at all. It's been replaced by this knowledge, this experience that, oh, I want to sit down because it's nice. So that I don't want to has been replaced by the habit. Well, anyway, any final thoughts? Because I want to do another meditation now, because
Sure.
we're about practice here. We don't want to talk too much. We want to actually do it. So if you would please, don't just watch, but follow along. Get into a position where you're not going to be falling asleep, but that you can be relaxed. And I will ring a bell. I'll ring the bell 3 times, and here we go. And we bring our attention to what we're feeling right now, our physical sensations, and all the thoughts that might be whirring around. Just let them be there in the back of the mind, but have the main focus on, what does it feel like? What am I feeling right now? Feeling gravity pushing my weight onto either my chair or my bed or the floor. Or if I'm standing, the weight on in my feet. If I'm in pain, I've got a little pain here and there, or maybe a lot of pain, noticing it, don't run away from it, but go to other parts of the body where there are more not so strong sensations, and notice those. Notice the constant motion. Even if we're sitting still, there's constant motion with the breath in and out. And you might take a couple deep breaths just to make that sensation more vivid. Just make it easier to notice what it feels like to be breathing. Take a couple deep breaths and then let the breath settle into whatever the natural rhythm is. close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. If there are sounds in the room, just let them wash over you. You're sitting here. It's like you're sitting in a rainstorm but you're under a nice raincoat. So those sounds they're just happening around you, but inside, you're calm, you're yourself. You are your breath, breathing in, breathing out. Almost always we get carried away so that we're not in the present moment anymore. We're out into the future, we're back into the past. When we notice this, if we get too far away, just drop those thoughts, just release, come back to what it feels like to be right here. We notice these thoughts are just coming and going. One thought, and then bang, there's another thought. They don't last very long. Unless we jump on them and we get carried away with the story. So don't get carried away if you can avoid it. Just like we said, just notice the thought maybe, but really keep your main focus on the sensation in your body, your breath, sitting here. One breath leads to the next. Be a little curious about what it feels like to breathe. Notice the in-breath, the out-breath, the little pause before you take the next in-breath. Notice that there is a time, there's a moment when there isn't any motion. If the attention is so scattered, sometimes it does help by using some words. It's not what the words mean, it's just almost the sound of the word to keep your mind a little bit more focused. Breathing in, breathing out. As your attention is with your body, you might notice your shoulders. Just let your shoulders relax. Notice your jaw. Release your jaw if it's clenched a little bit. You might think, I didn't even realize I had tension in my jaw, but now I can let it hang. dozens of tiny muscles in your face, in your cheeks, around your eyes. Let those release. When thoughts come up, you don't have to follow the train of thought. Can you release from the thought? Let it go. Thoughts are not reality. The reality is your body sitting here, breathing, alive. Notice what it's like to be alive this minute, right here. If there are any positive sensations in this picture, notice them. Really, really pay attention to them. That's one of the joys of meditating, is noticing when you feel good. On the other hand, if you're kind of impatient and jumpy and it's hard, that's another thing to notice. It might be one of those things where you just kind of allow it to happen. Allow yourself to be impatient without doing anything about it. This is what it is. This is what it feels like right now. It's not going to last for long. So I'll just notice what it feels like for the next minute or two. So we'll bring this to a close in about 30 seconds. And let this last half a minute be one where there's a couple breaths that you really pay attention to. In breath, out breath, a full cycle. Just stay right here, right now.
Thanks so much, Mr. Keogh. And thank all of you for sharing this, 3/4 of an hour or so with us. We look forward to visiting again in a couple of weeks. We wish you all the best. We hope you are taking good care of yourselves, that you are meditating to take care of yourselves, that you are connecting as much as you can with those you care about through writing them letters or phoning if you're able to. And that you know there are many people who do care about you, even if you never speak to them a word in your life. So take care, Mr. Keogh.
And I'm just thinking that there's a guy or more than one who are watching this who are going through some really tough times. And like Ms. Shepherd said, you're not alone. And also, I'd kind of like to remind you that everything that's happened so far in your life, you've managed, you've endured, and you can handle it. This is one thing that we've learned from over and over again. You can handle it. That hard times don't last forever. So
Absolutely.
take care of yourselves, everyone.
And everything you're doing this practice is a wonderful way to build resilience and strength and courage and self-confidence. so that you feel more and more certain that you can deal with whatever comes your way. So be well, take care. We'll see you in a couple weeks.